As humans, our highest purpose is to discover, live and communicate what is needed to achieve a world that functions for the benefit of all life. Our home is a water planet called Earth, which is cradled in a universe of incredible beauty, mystery, and unfolding drama. We now know that everything from the largest galaxy to the smallest particle is part of one unified, interconnected, interdependent whole. Each of us is important and unique. However, at this moment in history, we are being called to set aside narrow self-interests and to act with integrity, consciousness, and a spirit of goodwill. Recognizing our common destiny, we need to envision a world in which love becomes the prevailing human function, cooperating together with all cultures, races, nations and religions to become as wise and loving as the system that produced us. The time is right for us to make a change. Love shift. Working together, we can make a difference.
Hello, John Birch for Love Shift, and today I'd like to make a video about normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is a mental state which people enter into when faced with a potential disaster. It causes people to underestimate both the possibility of the disaster and the potential extent of its effects. The assumption made in the case of normalcy bias is that since a disaster never has occurred, it never will occur. People with normalcy bias tend to interpret warnings in the most optimistic way possible, seizing on any ambiguities to infer a less serious situation than the one that actually is. When the bias is held collectively, the distorted thinking gains inertia, which makes it even more difficult to eradicate. The nuclear threat is a classic example of normalcy bias. As generation upon generation grows up with the threat of nuclear annihilation, society becomes normalized to the danger and unable to respond appropriately. Humans on Earth are now seriously normalized to the possibility of a nuclear war. Helen Caldicott once called this heavy psychic numbing. Instead of being comfortable with the way things are, we should be terrified. We are complacent, even to the point of talking about preparing for winning and surviving such a war. What causes normalcy bias? Normalcy bias may be caused in part by the way the brain processes new data. Research suggests that even when the brain is calm, it takes 8 to 10 seconds to process new information. Stress slows the process, and when the brain cannot find an acceptable response to a situation, it fixates on a single default solution which may not be the best. How can we become unnormalized to a serious threat, such as the possibility of a nuclear war? This is one of the most important questions of our time. One answer is to talk. When we have conversations with others, we counteract the biases we have and learn from one another. If we will do this on a large scale, we can reverse a bias and replace it with relevant truth. And if this is done perpetually by many persons across the planet, a new inertia can emerge, which will be equally strong and far more effective. Visit www.loveshift.com/normalcybias.html to learn more. Love Shift. Working together, we can make a difference. P.S. For those who like to read and want to begin their own personal transformation, the recent book by Martin and Dorothy Hellman, A New Map for Relationships, is highly recommended. It's available on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble right now.
This video is going to be about leadership. Who is qualified? Whom can we count upon to lead? And what skills are needed to lead effectively? Look at this image. What do you see? This is a color-enhanced version of an 18th century woodcut. It shows a figure on his or her knees reaching out into a mysterious realm. The city can be seen below. The stars and moon are out. The sun looks on. I wonder what this figure is reaching for. Wheels seem to be in motion. Clouds appear. Our figure seems to be seeking something. A membrane or barrier exists, and our figure seems to be pinned, with body held in the world of things, and eyes and mind directed elsewhere. So what does this have to do with leadership? Just this. If we want to change the course of history and move humanity forward, we shall need a new form of leadership. But here's the deal. The new leader is not going to be a political figure, a scientist, an internet engineer, or even a spiritual guru. The new leader is us. We, the people, have become the new leader. Learning together, acting collectively as one integrated, interdependent whole. Are we qualified? Can we be counted upon? And what skill or skills do we need now to be able to lead effectively? Visit www.loveshift.com to learn more.
This video is going to be about alternatives to war. In the 1980s, the organization Beyond War examined the institution of war and came to the conclusion that all war had become obsolete. If this is true, then what is the alternative? The typewriter still exists, but the word processor has made it obsolete. The horse and buggy still exists, but the automobile has made it obsolete. Phone booths and landlines still exist, but the mobile phone has made them obsolete. So what is the alternative to war? It's not a new jet, or weapon, or satellite or bomb. It's not a treaty, or law, or regulation or leader. And it's not a technology, although this will help. The alternative to war is relationship. Here is a quote from September 11, 2001, which sums up this truth. The only reliable resource for security in the world today is relationship. When relationships are healthy, you don't need any military to protect you. When relationships are unhealthy, the largest military in the world won't keep you safe. So what would a relationship-based security system look like? What are the specifics? Remember, in order to work, the solution must be complex, involve new thinking, and be relationship-based. Here are some aspects to the solution. They comprise, through their interactivity, a viable, cultural, alternative to war. A peaceful attitude. Open communication. A flag of the world. Group thinking. An expanded identity. An expanded level of concern. Global patriotism. International conflict management. Negotiation. Scientific collaboration. Sister city programs. Sister schools. Student exchange programs. Shared peace traditions. Empathy for other nations' situations. Free trade. International travel. Democracy. Arbitration. A new, shared, definition of what it means to be a soldier. Economic interdependence. Dialogue groups. Peace learning programs. Cultural exchanges. Listening. Diversity inclusion programs. Pen pal programs. Mutual tourism. Taking all nuclear weapons off hair trigger alert. Peace journalism. International cities of peace. Elimination of launch on warning nuclear policy. Shared no first use nuclear policy. Nuclear weapons talks among all nations. Compassion. Holistic thinking. Intercultural understanding. Education. The Olympics. The promotion of nonviolence. Agreement to not pose an enemy. Goodwill. No blame. Being inclusive. Preventive diplomacy. Conversations that matter. Development of collective consciousness and what is called Big C. Being responsible. A new worldview. These and many other initiatives would form a benevolent complex. They might change over time. But, if made real, they would create a new intention on Earth. Together they would help emerge a global community with a culture that works for the benefit of all life. Together, they are more than powerful enough to make all war obsolete. Visit masterprinciples.org, alternatives2war.com, loveshift.com. P.S. Want to take immediate action? Share this video with your contacts and friends. Send it to your city, state and national representatives. Post it on blogs, forums and on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe to our channel and invite others to do the same. Thank you.
There have been writers and books which have suggested that we are living on a very special planet. Rare Earth was one such book, as I recall. Now, new scientists have proposed that, maybe, we are unique even in the entire Milky Way, as vast as it is, because of the implausible set of circumstances, such as our large Moon, 17-degree Earth axis tip, distance from the Sun, etc., which all had to line up favorably for life to occur, and then for sentient life to occur, and then for us to occur. As SETI extraterrestrial searchers seek to find another habitable Earth-like planet, and scour the heavens for some signal to prove that we are not alone, I have a new insight. The chances of another human species being like us must be lessened again, drastically, because, assuming that our sentience is generic, the other humans would presumably also go through the same self-defeating nuclear insanity we are going through, and, therefore, would have a similar limit on their ability to survive. If we are normal, other beings would be similar, and the narrow space between E equals mc2 and climate change would cut their chances of making it drastically. Double drastically. So, as we scan for our cosmic brethren, we had better take new stock in how precious our moment is, and how precarious our situation is. The rise to self-annihilation, which we have followed, if panoramic in the universe, would cut the chances of other Earthlings to massively less than a speck of a percent. If our chances are 1/1,000,000th, then so would theirs be. Now, on a more positive note. If we could see this, then we could choose to honor our land, i.e. Earth, develop global patriotism, and emerge a global community with a culture that works for the benefit of all life. We could become as wise and loving as the system that produced us. And we could care about our species, and all species, with a much deeper love. Why? Because we might, just might, be the only sentient beings out of a very, 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 very dinky little, minuscule, micro few. Love shift. Working together, we can make a difference.
Be terrified. Be terrified. Be really terrified. This video is going to be about the climate crisis. And, specifically, about the crushing power of dynamics, as it relates to global warming. Because dynamics are not controllable, this is where the most urgent danger is. What does this mean? And, why should we be terrified? Temperature, ice, ocean, permafrost, glaciers, ozone, CO2, methane, greenhouse gases. These elements are bad. But what makes them really dangerous is that they interact, and thus create an accelerating, self-perpetuating problem. If the climate rises over 2 degrees Celsius, and the dynamics tips, there is no stopping it. If we get to 2 degrees, 4, 6 and even 8 degrees are inevitable. Inevitable. There will be no stopping it. We must take this very seriously. The dynamics of climate change is, by far, the most dangerous aspect of the problem. By far. What to do? With accelerating, dynamic change there is only one solution. Prevention. Prevention is the only solution. Period. No correction is possible once we tip over 2 degrees Celsius. We have less than 10 years. Some say only 8.5 years, to totally manage this crisis. Go to www.itsmyclimate.com to learn more. There are over 100 initiatives individuals can take there. This is serious. We are closing in on 1.5 degrees Celsius right now. The chances of halting before 2.0 degrees Celsius, based on the current rate of change, are less than 5%. We are in big trouble. Failure is not an option. It starts with the individual. Sustained individual attention. And action. And education. Forever. Love shift. Working together, we can make a difference. The title of this video is 2 equals death. 2 equals death. What in the world could this mean? We are faced with an unprecedented challenge today. We call it the climate crisis. We are waking up to the fact that the phenomenon we are talking about is dynamic, meaning that the many elements interact and thus create momentum, acceleration and inertia. This is bad, but what this video is going to suggest is even worse. We know, now, that if the climate reaches 2 degrees Celsius, it will tip, and there will be no stopping it. If it goes over 2, it will, by definition, go on to 4, 6 and 8 degrees Celsius. This is inevitable. And, if we get to 8 degrees Celsius, we are done. Goners. Finished as a species and a humanity. All dead. Dead. So, by the transitive property of equality in algebra, if 2 equals 8, and 8 equals death, then 2 equals death. To repeat. If 2 equals 8, and 8 equals death, then 2 equals death. We must see the imperative of this truth. We are heading toward 2 degrees right now. Even as you watch this video. The rate of change is changing. We call this acceleration. That is where we are. Together. For better or for worse. We must treat 2 degrees Celsius as though it is 8 degrees. Or we're dead. Period.
This video is going to be about something entirely new. It has never existed on Earth before. It is totally unique. And, it is required, now, if we are going to survive. What is it? The collective hero. Over recorded history, we have had many stories about change, and the human response. We've heard of earthquakes, ice ages, the plague, volcanic eruptions, and even global wars. In all of this, our species, Homo sapiens, has always managed to survive. How? By taking creative initiative whenever needed. By innovating. And by facing the challenges of the day with heroism and courage. In our culture, we have a myth to describe this response to crisis. It is sometimes called the hero's journey. Each of us has to travel this path. Learn from our losses. And become more able to see what to do next. And, ultimately, after many aspects of this journey, such as our family, our education, our marriages and our careers, we often return to our essence and come home, as they say. So what does this have to do with this moment in time, and, specifically with the climate crisis? Just this. What we need to become as a global community. And, with it, we need to become heroic again. Only this time, and this is why this is so important, we need to become collectively heroic. Right now, at this moment on Earth, we need to emerge a new entity, the collective hero. And that hero is us. All of us. Working together. To see love with new eyes. And to become as wise and loving as the system that produced us. The climate crisis is pressuring us to become this. If we do, we will have a chance. If we don't, we will have no chance, or, maybe a slight chance, with unfathomable suffering along the way. The choice is ours. The outcomes are mutually exclusive. And, for better or worse, it's now or never. Love shift. Working together we can make a difference.